No! Hi everyone, welcome to Talk and Chalk. I'm Beck, and today I'm going to be going through some tips and I guess just some suggestions that might help you when working with kids that are openly defiant or oppositional in the classroom. This topic has come up a lot lately. I've been sent messages through the Talk and Chalk page, through Twitter. A lot of people just generally asking me for their advice on dealing with a lot of behaviors that all come under the umbrella of being oppositional or defiant. So I want to thank you guys for reaching out to me and asking that. I know it can't always be easy to ask for help, especially from a stranger. So I really appreciate you as educators taking the initiative to want to seek information from anywhere that you can find it. So, you know, I think that's a great step in terms of knowing that you're willing to do that extra bit or go the extra mile for that child, which is generally what those children need. So before I get into it, I just want to remind everyone that if you're new to the channel, you're very welcome, and I hope you enjoy the videos. I've got links to my other things down the bottom, my social media like Instagram and Twitter and all that sort of a thing. So you feel free to follow me on those formats. I kind of try and share different things and in different pages, but for the videos, it's just me rambling on about my experiences of people around me, and just the good things that I've found that work as I've been teaching. This is my 16th year of teaching now. I'm not in a classroom at the moment. I'm in a bit more of a corporate position just for this term, which is really exciting and great to see what's going on in the background, but I haven't lost touch with what's going on in the classroom. So I wrote down some notes, as you do, and I just want you to know that when I talk about this topic, the biggest experiences I have had with this come from when I did my special ed degree, and primarily I focused on behavioural needs. So I've been to support units and behaviour settings, and then I try to utilise all of those experiences as best as I can in the mainstream setting, and one thing won't always work. So these things that I'm sharing with you, as always, are not the be all and end all of what of what you can do. It's just an option for you. However, I can tell you that the things I'm going to tell you today have consistently worked across the board for me over all of my years of teaching for the majority of those students. Some students will always need way more support. They'll need counselling or a psychologist or even a psychiatrist if it's very, very serious. So don't discount that the things that you're doing, maybe you're not doing well. That's not necessarily the case. It could just be a case of they need really explicit expertise, and an expert to help them. So we're doing our best with what we've got. So let's talk preventatives first. So usually those kids that have that oppositional behaviour or defiant behaviour are going to present themselves almost like a meltdown when it gets too much for them. So before that happens, obviously, as we always do, we try to set up that expectation in the classroom and a culture of trust and respect, and that's mutual. So making sure that, you know, if you're team teaching, you're demonstrating that culture of respect and trust with the teacher, that you're showing it with other students, that you're doing it with students from other classes. If you've got kids split up into your class, they're not less, they're not different, they still have that same value in your classroom. Just generally focusing on the positive. If you have got that air of negativity around you, around every little thing that happens, and you let the little things get to you in the classroom and you let the kids see that, those kids will feed off that. They will feed off it like you won't believe, and then those kids that have those other needs, they'll just draw on it even more. So I tend to focus on personal best, and I explicitly say that you are focusing on your personal best. And I've said this in my other videos, just because you're level 5 and you're level 20 does not mean that the effort you did today was less than the effort that that person made just because they're on a higher level. You probably put in more effort. And the fact that you moved up 2 reading levels means that you are focusing on your personal best. And, you know, don't try and compare like that. Look at their own achievements, their own goals, and achieving those things, because chances are those kids that are going to present to you with those really difficult behaviors really just need to focus on their own goals and not competing with other kids in the class. Being explicit about using respectful behavior when disagreeing. So team teaching is a great opportunity to do that, especially if you're doing something like an exposition, you're getting into those arguments for and against. I purposely take a different position to the teacher that I'm team teaching with. Most of the time we all do. It's a good strategy to use. And then we can model disagreeing with each other. And then if you're in that moment as well, you've got that opportunity to provide an example of what it would look like to be disrespectful. Not just doing it and then letting the kids infer that, oh, they're being disrespectful. You've got to say, now if I said this to Mrs. whoever, that would be pretty disrespectful of me to say that, wouldn't I? I need to really present my argument with a reason without being disrespectful about it. It's okay to disagree with each other as long as you're talking to each other respectfully. And the idea behind this is we really want to have our facts to back it up. And then you can model that. That's a really good opportunity to show how that when you're in a disagreement, you don't have to get heated and emotional about it, that you can present your ideas and your arguments and still disagree at the end. The whole point isn't necessarily to create an environment where everyone has to think the same thing as me, but just that we can share our expressions and our opinions openly and honestly without having that argument. All of that is going to be great lead up to if those situations occur. So that moment, that in the moment, which is when we're dealing with a hard moment. And they always come at the worst of times. You could be in like the middle of the best lesson ever, and that kid will just fly off the handle. Okay, so then we get to that moment when it's in the moment. That moment when there could be a meltdown or a fight or an argument or whatever. This is the point when they start saying, no, I'm not doing it. You can't make me. All those things that are openly defiant, openly oppositional. Don't battle it. There's no point. There's no point whatsoever going negative versus negative. Think of them like magnets repelling. That's what's going to happen. There's an invisible force there that's just going to bounce you back off against the walls. There's no point even trying. And I know sometimes we want to get into it because they'll say no. I said yes. It's hard not to give into that moment. And you really need to take time to think of your answer. Give those 3 seconds that we all talk about, that waiting period, for them to possibly rethink their answer, to possibly make another choice, and then you can respond. And still, don't respond with a negative. In this case, negative plus negative just equals bad. You need to keep calm and you need to slow down what you're talking about. Me, naturally, I think you guys have heard, I can be a very fast talker. And when I get really, really excited, I get even faster and I get louder. And that's not good for those kids because it just heightens all the emotions even more. So when that moment happens, I need to consciously say to myself, calm down, lower your voice, talk quieter, move slowly. So no quick movements, no throwing pens down, none of that huffy puffiness that sometimes we can get when we're all emotional. And I need to think of that body language that goes into it. I'm not going to lean down over them. I'm a very tall person for a girl. No, I'm just generally pretty tall. So, I'm not going to hover over them like that. That's almost aggressive to do that. I need to make sure that sometimes I kneel down, I get down on my knees and get to their eye level to be able to talk to them. Sometimes I pull up one of the little kiddie chairs, tiny kindy chairs, that you need one for each cheek because they're just so small, and get down on their level because, me being tall, me being loud, me talking fast, it's almost like a invisible power struggle just in my behavior alone. So calm, quiet, collected. The standard strategies, ignoring, not even going to pay attention to it because I know you just want my attention at the moment. Could be a very good reason for that you want my attention at the moment, and I'm just not going to give it. Not when you're doing that. I'm not going to feed into, giving you attention, which is essentially the reward that you're after, by even looking at you at the moment. In my peripheral, I'm doing my duty of care and I know exactly what you're doing, but I'm not engaging in it. Another option is distraction. This is easier with little kids than it is with the older kids, but it could be something as simple as something shiny, squirrel. Those children, so what's going to distract them. So I had very early in my career when I was in a unit, a student who loved Bob the Builder. So if I got anything with Bob the Builder out, that was a good distraction, and that worked straight away, pretty much every time for him. I had another one that was obsessed with Star Wars. Standard ones, Lego, all those sorts of things. So use the distraction. I tend to use a little bit of humor to distract it, and I usually, I guess I make fun of myself a little bit. If I've done something silly or anything that's laughable, I'll use that as a moment to try and gauge a laugh, get them out of that angry state that they're in. And if they're not coming out of it naturally that way, don't force it. It's like when someone's trying to tell you a joke and it's not funny and it's just going nowhere. and redirecting. So, you know, that's part of the distraction method. Do not negotiate in this moment. In that moment that they're having a meltdown and just at you, this is not the time to make a negotiation. Oh, if you do it, you can do the iPad. No, absolutely not the time to do that. You can do that later at a different time. When you're in that moment, that is not the time to negotiate, because then it becomes a power struggle and they will win every time. And then they will do it again and again and again and again because they know they will win. Do not negotiate in that moment. Set the expectation clear. You've been asked to do this. You can do this. And if it's something along the lines of, you know, let's say you're doing a spelling activity and they're not wanting to do it. All right, you've been asked to do your spelling activity. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to calm down, and then I will look around and I will see you doing your spelling activity. So you've given them the choice there of having time away from it. The expectation is still there that they will do it though. You haven't said how much, doesn't say it has to all be completed, but I will turn around and see you doing your work. And so that's not a negotiation. The expectation is still there. However, you've given them a little bit of leniency to what they're doing. And don't get personal. Don't get some of these kids, especially secondary, they'll call you names. They'll say all sorts of things. Might be true, might not. I'm carrying extra weight. They might talk about it. Who cares? It's got to be water off a duck's back, guys, because sometimes in that moment, they're just saying anything to get that rise out of you. And sometimes these kids can't control that. They don't know how to control it. They haven't learnt it. It's a learnt behavior for them. So the biggest thing that you can do to help them is just remember they need time and space. That is always the only thing that they will ever need. They don't need the iPad. They don't need necessarily all those extra things that you might be willing to negotiate for, like Lego or free time or the dark space or whatever. They need time and space. They need the time to collect themselves and the space to do that. So when we're talking about kids with sensory needs, of course, they will absolutely need something like calming, sensory, weighted blankets, those sorts of things. Those things I'm not putting together in terms of this specifically oppositional defiant behavior. They're on kind of different tangents. So this comes down to, again, you knowing your student and knowing the kids in your class and how they're going to respond to what they need. The biggest thing, though, is just time and space. And you might have a room that doesn't necessarily have that. So you need to then offer the option of a self timeout. And that, it's something that you would put in place, I guess, beforehand. However, if this is a new student and you've never, had this behavior before, then you need to offer that to them. So I always had a little card in the classroom, and it was a timeout card. It literally said self timeout, and it was in a spot that they could get to. If you're in a secondary situation, they might have it in their pencil case or something. And the understanding is that any time they need it, they can bring you the card for self timeout, and it's a designated amount of time. So it could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes in a designated place. So it could be in the class next door, could be up at the principal's office, it could be on the chair just outside the window where I can still see you, whatever works for you. And they don't have to explain it. That's the understanding. They're in that moment, they just need to go. They come and give you the card, you say thank you, and off you go. No questions asked. This needs to be something that you offer those kids, because in that moment, those kids struggle to articulate their needs. And by having that option, that self timeout option, gives them that option of time and space that they need to be able to talk about it later. So I'm just going back at my notes. Okay, so those are the strategies that I use in that moment. Afterwards, this is your best opportunity to then reflect and discuss and really be explicit about how did you feel, what was going on in your head, what was going on in your body, what did you want to do, why did you want to do it, what was leading up to it. And you might just discuss it, you might write it down, they might have a journal. This could be something perhaps that goes to executive or the counsellor if you need it to. And this is the time to negotiate. When it's fresh in their head like that, this is the time to go, okay, so that we can prevent this from happening again, what do you think it is that you need? And when you're having that conversation, reiterate the choices that you can control. So don't just give a blanket, what would you like to do in the school? You need to give options. Okay, so next time you're feeling really angry and upset and someone is near you, you can choose to get a pillow and go to the corner. You can choose to go to the pop tent. You can choose to sit in the withdrawal room. Those are your 3 choices. Which one would you like to use? You see, you're still negotiating, but you're controlling those choices that they can make. And don't give them too many. 2 or 3 is perfect. And that's the time when you can also nut out your, first and then options for your littlies. First you need to do the work that I say you need to do, and then you get to choose between the iPad or the puzzles. Which one would you like to have? And then you're going to have that as a preventative measure later on, so that when those things happen, you might have a visual, you'll have that language. Remember, we discussed this. Remember yesterday we spoke about what you could have after you do your work, and you chose Lego. So once you do your work, you get that Lego, and it'll really bring them right back down and center them to exactly what it is they need to do before they can move on. And really, you need to understand as well that expectation for what they can do. For various reasons, those kids are going to struggle to get their work done, whether it's emotional, physical, mental, whatever. And that the expectation to get something complete really weighs on their shoulders. So give them that option. I just want the first part done. Yep, let's just do the first part and go get some Lego. Get some Lego? All right, let's come back and do that second part. Yeah, it's easy. Yep, just that second part. Yep, let's go get some more Lego. Oh, we'll do the third part later. It's fine. No stress. Okay, come back. Now let's do the third part. This again comes down to you knowing your kids and what those expectations are. And this is not something that stays like that. That's not a practice I would have all year long. The expectation would then be moving on to, okay, no, we've done the first part for 2 weeks now. Now it's time to do first part and the second part before you get the Lego. You can do it. You're really smart. I know you can do it. First part, second part, yep, then the Lego. And then you stretch it out. First part, second part, third part, then the Lego. And you really, bridge them to that point where it's independent and they're needing that reinforcement less and less. Okay, I think that's all I've got on my book for today. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope this has been helpful. If you've got any tips that I've completely missed, please put them in the comments below so that anyone else that's watching and checking the comments could utilize your tips and strategies too. I've utilized these in primary and secondary, these skills, and it really just comes down to how your classroom's laid out, what your timetable looks like, most of all the relationships you have with your kids. That's the biggest thing of all. And if you've got a teacher in another space that can really help you out with that, use it, team teach it, model it with each other, bounce off each other. That's always what you need. So thanks for watching. I'm going to pop my button down the bottom here so that you can hover over that and click to subscribe if you like the videos. And I'll pop one of my other videos up there. There haven't been too many views lately because we're all really busy, so I'll pop something else up there as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.